Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. Today, we're discussing taking control of your virtualization journey to do a couple of things. Things like eliminate vendor lock in, things like reducing costs out there, and also simplifying your hybrid IT, all while setting the stage for future modernizations with technologies like HPE Morpheus VM Essentials. We'll be diving into a little bit of that today. My name is James Hilliard. Glad to be here as the host for the conversation. Two gentlemen join me. I have the Senior Manager for Global Category Sales for Cloud Ops Software over at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, Mark Kravitz, on board. Glad to have him here. We also have on board Anthony Schweitzer. He joins us. He's a solutions architect at Eagle Technologies. And over the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to talk about how organizations like yours can transform the way you're approaching your virtualization journey. We'll talk about why Eagle Technologies and HPE together can set you up for success, and we will share the promise of HPE Morpheus VM Essentials. Mark, I'm going to start with you. We go to the Wayback Machine. 2 years ago is when Broadcom and VMware, that acquisition took place. There were a lot of questions at that time. Teams have now lived with this new reality for a period of time. I'm wondering what they're asking you now. What do they want from HPE? What questions are on their mind?
James, it's good to be with you. And you addressed a few of those points already, but yeah, I think, costs obviously are still an issue. I think, customers are looking at, do we look at renewing, or if we do go somewhere else, are we going to get hit with this unexpected cost increase overnight? I think that's part of it. I think there's still some concern over vendor lock-in around some unpredictability potential later on, and maybe this hinders some of our flexibility long term with maybe decisions around architecture. And then there's a risk of change. I think that's still out there, right? If we look at what customers are using VMware for, a lot of them it's running their core business applications, and so any type of risk or variability that comes into that, it can't have any disruption. We can't have any downtime. So going into these, a lot of customers, I think, are definitely taking pause before they go into a, an engagement like this. And then the last thing I'll really talk, it really is, I'm hearing is really just the overall complexity in terms of, businesses now, things are more complex when you look at all of the different types of workloads they're dealing with. You built, having to, meeting the needs in terms of speed and reliability of services, what the business needs. And so adding any more complexity to this is just something that a lot of customers are looking at before, jumping into a project.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about Morpheus VM Essentials and in this kind of lens here of how does it change the way if customers are going to say this is the route we want to go with technology, how's that going to change the way that they do manage things, how they operate, how they scale their virtualized environments compared to maybe what they've been doing for a long period of time?
Yeah, so no, really good question. So, the first thing is I see is giving customers predictability. So I think when Broadcom moved to from SOC into the core based licensing, I think that put a lot of complexity in terms of just adding cost, but also for customers' ability long term to bring on new workloads, right? So things as we start getting things like AI, which may have different types of requirements, it's hard to forecast some of that. And so what we made a strategic decision with VM Essentials to go with a socket-based model, unlimited cores, and so customers have more predictability long term in terms of costs and what workloads they may bring on in the future. So that's one area. The second one was really around flexibility in terms of how they can consume it, meaning that if I had a big investment in my infrastructure and maybe I just want to purchase software, then we are going to allow them to do that. So we've purposely are working with multiple vendors out there so that to make sure that if customers are adopting this technology, they're not having to rip and replace their hardware just to consume a new hypervisor. So flexibility on the offering was also very key. And the other piece is really just around simplicity, right? So, we see a lot of customers are going to have some type of a dual or multi-hypervisor strategy. And so incorporating that, right, can definitely become complexity. And so one of the reasons why we are going to market with this is, a lot of the simplicity we're driving is through the technology. So we made a big acquisition of a company called Morpheus Data, and which VM Essentials is based on. And the whole value prop of what they do is to be able to integrate into multiple hypervisor clusters or the public cloud and basically make things simple and bring automation. And so we're bringing that into the virtualization space where we can allow a customer to easily manage both their VMware and their KVM environments and drive automation and simplicity through that, not adding additional complexity. And the Morpheus technology it's based on is allowing us to do that.
So you've really laid out some of the strategic choices that went into the technology, right? There was also a strategic choice about going to market with this, and that was to really rely on partners like Eagle Technologies, right? To really be that individual team that can work with the customers and lead them through any transition and change that they choose to make. Talk to me why that was a strategic choice.
Yeah, so yeah, we as we launched this initiative in this solution, we made a strategic decision that this was going to be 100% partner model. So meaning as we do business in this space with our software, it is 100% through partners. Biggest reason is, I talked about risk, right, and things like that. And so our partners like Eagle have deep relationships with our customers, right? They're really looked at as the trusted advisor to help them guide them through all of these areas of this type of initiative. And so, we have a very long-term relationship with Eagle, a little under a decade of partnership around all of our solutions in the hybrid IT space, which is now expanding into software. And so they're able to come in, really understand, look at the workloads that the customers are using, and be able to provide that guidance in terms of the routes that they can take in terms of the right hypervisor mix, the migration strategy, what workloads might fit in, what type of hypervisor strategy they're going to have long term. And so, we rely on our partners to be kind of our part of our ecosystem. And Eagle is one of our main partners that we are supporting in this area.
Well, let's do this. It's a perfect time, Anthony, to hear from the Eagle Technologies team and your partnership with HPE again, nearly a decade. Can you talk to me a little bit about how that has evolved over time, and then even more particularly how it's been evolving recently with you working with more customers, talking to them about their virtualization journey and the changes that are going on in the marketplace?
Yeah, over that relationship, it's been great to have the opportunity to work with different, employees at HPE at various levels. And one thing that kept standing out to me was how long they have been employees at HPE. And that meant a lot. Obviously you don't stay somewhere where it's a toxic work environment or, you don't have good products to sell. And so it really showed their passion for helping people, helping us through scenarios or whatever it might be. So, that and given the track record of all the acquisitions that HPE's made and how they've handled those, from Nimble, from Aruba and others, I was extremely excited when I saw that they acquired Morpheus. When at that time there was no really good alternative to VMware that really offered hardware and architectural flexibility. Everything was kind of forced into a certain box, and we didn't like that for our customers. So this has been a sigh of relief, honestly, of what you guys have come out with so that we can offer that flexibility from an architectural standpoint and something that's proven in the market. So.
One of the big reasons, and Mark was touching on a little bit of why HPE's, and in this case, choosing to go to market with partners is you get to be there with the partners day in and day out. You get to create those more intimate long-term relationships. Can you tell me, it's kind of a feedback question, as you're engaging with your customers on their virtualization journeys, obviously you make them a promise that, hey, we're going to help you along the way and we're going to get you to where you want to get. But what do they come back and say to you that says, man, Anthony, you and the Eagle team, you really did this. This is what we really appreciate about you as our partner for this type of journey.
So to your point, relationship is so key to our business. And, that's really built on trust, which you have to earn over time. And you could easily lose it, right? And so it makes going to work fun. The relationships with colleagues, with customers, everything else, it really makes it enjoyable. And we all know that technology is not flawless. But those moments are areas to shine to show that, all hands on deck. How do we help a customer through a situation, through a scenario? And I believe that approach has really led us to have, very long lasting relationship with customers. I had our internal staff do some research, and our longest customer has been with us for over 26 years. And our average of our active customers is well over 10 years. So that's multiple refresh cycles. Again, not everything goes perfect, but it's how we engage, how we design, how we are there for them, and really try to help them with the solution soup to nuts. Not just on the architectural side, but supporting it after the fact.
And not only the long-term relationships you've mentioned that you have with your customers, but then again, back to the relationship with HPE means that as you're going through and sharing and moving people over to VM Essentials, something comes up, you can hit them up for a quick phone call, consult anytime, any place.
Yes, and that's so we actually have developed a presentation around Broadcom alternatives that we've been delivering to customers, and we're evaluating 10 different hypervisors in our lab, so we're actually digging in and seeing the details. One of the things we highlight with that is the escalation pathways that we have with HPE and Morpheus that you don't get with any of these other options. Again, going back to things happen, nothing's perfect. What do you do in those moments? How can we help? And we know HPE is there, and we have those resources available to do what is needed for the customer in that moment.
Last thing I want to do with both of you guys here is get some kind of, all right, what do we do next? And so, Mark, starting with you, right? Practical little piece of advice here for customers that are looking to continue, get deeper in their evaluation of HP Morpheus VM Essentials. What's that next step for most people?
Yeah, and I kind of like where Anthony was going in terms of kind of that independent voice, right? And I'm not going to stand up here and say VM Essentials is going to be the answer. I think we want to make sure that the customer, that's why we work with our partners, is to get that foundation so that they can make that best decision going forward. So, understand your workloads and use cases, being able to look at a migration strategy. Maybe there are things at the end of the day that we can do in combination with, say, an infrastructure refresh that might make it more viable for Broadcom, or obviously there's a lot of other alternatives. As I said, I think most customers are going to have some type of a dual hypervisor or multi-hypervisor strategy. And so we always recommend doing an assessment, understanding what you're going to work with. That kind of gets that the best plan and reduces the risk going forward so that you're not dragging out this type of engagement or driving costs up. So, we use a number of assessment technologies to really help us understand what's going on from a customer standpoint, both in the virtualization side as well as in your infrastructure, to make sure that we can help you make that best plan going forward.
And Anthony, I mean, kind of same question, but also maybe then a little color at a high level of what it is like to engage with Eagle as you're talking to people around their virtualization journey. What is kind of a next step, and what's that look like for you engaging with them?
Yeah, great question. So we do not like the, hey, just quote this for me type of request. So we like to do the assessments, look at the environment holistically. We call it design in depth, but it's really let's look at what you're trying to accomplish and make sure we can come and get to a successful outcome. And there's lots of reasons behind that, but obviously we're gonna stand behind a solution that we choose. There's reasons that, to Mark's point, that maybe they go a different direction for a certain workload in a hypervisor or cloud option or whatever else. But let's really understand what you're trying to accomplish and find the best fit for their needs. That discussion's key because that customer is ultimately the one that's going to be dealing with it day in, day out. And we want to educate them on the pros and the cons of all the potential choices they have and try to simplify that for them. Um, in addition, we also are doing, we like to do first line support for the majority of the products we sell. And we're planning on investing engineering resources to do a level 1 support for VME as well. So not only are we architecting on the front end, we're implementing, delivering, and we're going to be there after the fact to make sure that it's successful and that we're here to answer questions and whatever else might come up.
Yeah, good stuff on that. Do appreciate it, Anthony. Mark, thanks for your time here as well. Folks, if you want more information about how HPE Morpheus VM Essentials delivered by Eagle Technologies can really help you reduce some complexity out there and regain control of your virtualization strategy, then I want you to visit us online, eagleinc.com. Eagle, I-N-C, eagleinc.com for more information. With that, we'll wrap things up. We appreciate you joining us, and we do look forward to talking to you all down the road.